Hey there crew, and welcome to yet another episode of Star Trek Online Explained. I'm gonna be your coach, my name is Captain Geronimo, and in today's episode I would like to talk about Starship Specializations, so to call them like that, because there is no certain name to call them by. To be more precise, I would like to talk about built-in Starship mechanics and abilities of Intel, Command, Pilot, Temporal, and Miracle Worker starships. Those are Gather Intelligence and Warp Signature Masking, Inspiration Abilities, Pilot Maneuvers, Molecular Reconfiguration System, and Innovation Effects. How to operate them, what they do, how do you do them, and basically what are the benefits of using them. They're completely free, they're built into certain types of starships, and hopefully with this video I will be able to explain it to you. So, with that being said, and without any further ado, let's proceed with today's episode. Engage! Gather Intelligence is a built-in starship mechanic only available to players who use intelligence starships. There are a lot of Intel ships within game, and we can only expect to see even more of them. All Intel ships are capable of deploying Intel Sensor Drone with activation of Gather Intelligence ability. When launched, this sensor drone will cloak and fly towards your target, performing a deep scan of them in order to reveal their vulnerabilities. Every second, the target of Gather Intelligence will have one stack of penetrating scan placed on top of them. Once the target reaches 15 stacks, they become vulnerable for short duration. Note: weaker enemies require less stacks to be rendered vulnerable. Multiple Intel starships can contribute to the number of penetrating stacks, causing a target to become vulnerable more quickly. You can achieve this effect by having 2 or more Intel ships target the same enemy, while simultaneously using Gather Intelligence ability on them. When your target is in vulnerable state, then you can use Expose Vulnerability abilities on them. After the vulnerable stat expires, the target becomes immune to further stacks of Gather Intelligence for short duration. So, you can give your target 15 stacks of penetrating scan and you just made them vulnerable. Great, now you can use one of 3 Expose Vulnerability abilities. These abilities will find a critical weakness in the vulnerable starship and then will allow you and your teammates to briefly exploit it. This comes in a form of crippling debuff or control effect. After the target has been affected by Expose Vulnerability effect, the affected foe quickly compensates for its discovered weakness and thus can't get any more penetrating scan marks on top of itself for a short period of time. Expose Vulnerability Defenses exposes vulnerability in foes' defensive systems, which significantly reduces the target's damage resistance and shield hardness for a short time, thus increasing the damage the target takes to both shields and hull. In addition, the target will have all engineering bridge officer buffs removed. This ability's debuff effects will not stack with multiple users, however the ability duration is extended for each additional application of Expose Vulnerability defenses. So what I'm talking right now is only available if you have multiple Intel starships that are targeting the same enemy and using the same ability on them. Expose Vulnerability in Weapon Systems exposes vulnerability in your foe's weapon systems, which significantly reduces the damage output and accuracy of your enemy for a short time. In addition, the target will have all of its tactical bridge officer buffs removed. This ability debuffing effects do not stack with multiple users, however the ability duration is extended for each application of Expose Vulnerability in Weapon Systems, same as the previous one. Expose Vulnerability in Critical Systems exposes a vulnerability in your foe's critical systems, thus rendering them held in place for a brief period. In addition, the target will have all of its Science Bridge Officer buffs removed. The ability debuffing effects do not stack with multiple uses, but as I said previously, this ability duration is extended for each additional application. Intelligence vessels are all also capable of passive warp signature masking. This passive ability grants an Intel ship a tiny amount of stealth, which renders the Intel craft undetectable at long ranges. This passive stealth bonus is removed when the starship activates its cloaking device. Exposing vulnerabilities can be of tremendous help to you, as you can disable your opponent, decreasing its damage resistance or in general decreasing its performance. Exposes are nowadays best utilized against large dreadnoughts or boss ships. Inspiration abilities are a built-in starship mechanics only available to players who use command starships. When you activate a bridge officer ability, you generate inspiration. On the launch of command ships on the February 12, 2015, inspiration was also generated by bridge officer abilities used by your teammates. On February 19th, inspiration generation was tweaked, but due to team inspiration generation having an unexpected impact on server performance, this was disabled within the May 14, 2015 patch, which increased additional generation to compensate. So, to recap, when you use the bridge officer abilities, you gain inspiration, and every time you use command bridge officer ability, you gain twice as much inspiration. When your inspiration meter is full, one of 3 abilities can be used. Once used, your inspiration meter is reset to 0, and you will be unable to generate inspiration for a short time. Inspiration ability buffs you and your teammates, and they are: Turn the Tide. When active, you and your teammates will regenerate hull very quickly and you will have damage resistance increased substantially. Activating this ability requires a full bar of inspiration. Multiple stacks of this ability will extend the duration, instead of stacking the potency of this effect. This, of course, the same way as Intel ships can collaborate together, multiple command ships can buff the team. The next one is Against All Odds. Once activated, you and your teammates will gain a substantial bonus to damage, as well to a massive reduction in weapon power cost. Activating this ability requires a full inspiration, of course, and multiple stacks of this ability will extend the duration instead of stacking the potency. And the last one, Battle Preparation. Once activated, all of yours and your team's bridge officer abilities will receive a massive reduction in remaining charge time. This will cause most abilities to become immediately fully recovered or very nearly fully recharged. Activating this requires a full bar of inspiration, has a longer recharge. In essence, Battle Preparation is going to almost instantly recharge your bridge officers that are currently on cooldown. Due to it being potentially extremely powerful and useful ability, that's why it has lengthier cooldown period and cannot be reshared with multiple uses from other command ships. Command abilities are amazing help within combat. They can either enhance tactical performance of every starship within your team, or give you damage resistance and hull regeneration that can help you while being under heavy fire. Inspiration abilities are also made to help you, but they have your team in mind as well. Pilot maneuvers are built-in starship mechanics only available to players who use, you guessed it, pilot ships. Starships that fall into this category are still a growing list, so no need to name them all right now. You know how you're able to perform an active dodging rolls on the ground? Well, pilot ships are able to perform special maneuvers, but in space. All you need to do is simply double tap the directional key you'd like your ship to perform a special maneuver at. These maneuvers can be rebound to different keys or activated individually from the user interface element. After activating pilot maneuver, you will become briefly immune to the damage. After performing such a maneuver, you must wait a short period of time before doing another maneuver. Pilot maneuver requires a full tank. Activating a pilot maneuver will fully deplete this fuel tank, but don't worry, ship's Bassard collectors will automatically and swiftly refuel your tanks in no time. Available maneuvers are Afterburners. By double-tapping a W key by default, you will fly forward in a quick burst of speed covering a good distance. Afterburners can allow you to get out of the dangerous area quickly and grant you a brief period of damage immunity. Barrel Roll. You can perform a barrel roll to the left or to the right by tapping the A key by default or by tapping a D key by the default. Barrel rolls will cause you to travel some distance in chosen direction, and it will help you escape hazards. For example, Teleron Burst or Crescent Wave Cannon. Unlike Afterburners, barrel rolls will grant you a brief period of immunity to damage. Retro Rockets. You can activate your pilot ship's retro rockets by double tapping the S key by the default. This will cause your ship to launch backwards and cover a fairly large distance. This can allow you to get behind a pursuing target or to just continue for a second attack run. Retro rockets also grant you a brief period of damage immunity. Pilot maneuvers are a great way to help you shake off potential hazard. I love using retro rockets because I can just slide backwards and extend my attack run. Perfect for a ship that's using cannons. Also, if you have enemies on your tail, you can just quickly slip behind them and now you have the upper hand. You're on their tail. Molecular Reconstruction is a built-in starship mechanic only available to the players who use Temporal starships. Number of Temporal ships is currently in temporal flux, so no need to name them all here. Temporal starships are capable of making subtle alterations on the molecular level through the use of molecular reconstruction. This technology allows the starship to assume one of 3 different configurations: defensive, offensive, and support. Note, TOS and 26th century era starships have a glowing white dot on the hull that will indicate the color depending on what configuration is currently active at the time. Red stands for offensive, blue for defensive, and yellow for support. Additionally, the player may choose to have no active configuration, or you can run one configuration and then switch to another one. Each configuration has its own set of strengths and weaknesses. Each of the configuration will generate the specific counter. A ship may have up to 6 counters collected at a time. After reaching 6 counters, any additional generated ones are gonna be lost. These counters are used to fuel your molecular deconstruction beam. While defensive configuration is active, the starship systems will dynamically reconfigure to fill more of a defense role. This provides a boost to maximum shield power and incoming hull healing. This comes at a cost of small reduction to flight speed and turn rate. Defensive configuration generates 1 defensive counter every 10 seconds. While offensive configuration is active, the starship systems will dynamically reconfigure to fill up a more offensive role. This provides a boost to maximum engine power, speed, and turn rate. It comes at a cost of small reduction of incoming hull healing. Offensive configuration will generate 1 offensive counter every 10 seconds. And finally, support configuration. While it's active, the starship systems will reconfigure to fit a more of support role. It provides a boost to maximum auxiliary power, control expertise skills, and exotic damage. Okay, so let's say that you have all 6 counters collected. Now you can use them to fuel molecular deconstruction beam. Activating this ability requires a total of 6 counters generated by defensive, offensive, or support configurations. Note, you don't have to have all 6 counters of same configuration, you can have a mix of them. For example, 2 defense, 3 offense, and 1 support. Amount of gathered counters will determine the strength of molecular deconstruction beam's effect. If you had offensive counters, molecular deconstruction beam will deal physical damage to enemy. Damage dealt by the beam will scale up with the number of offensive counters that you have. If you had support counters, molecular deconstruction beam will disable your opponent. Disable duration scales with number of support counters consumed. And if you had defensive counters, molecular deconstruction beam will heal your hull. The healing amount scales up with the number of defensive counters which are consumed. If you had mixed counters, then molecular deconstruction beam can do 2 or all 3 effects, depending on what counters you have gathered. Sometimes, if the situation suddenly starts going in the direction I don't want it to go, I will deactivate offensive and activate a support configuration. When I collect all 6 counters, I will be able to heal myself and deal damage to my opponent. As stated before, amount of damage and healing will depend on the amount of counters that you currently have. But temporal abilities are quite interesting. If you know how to use them properly, they can be pretty devastating. Innovation effects are a built-in starship mechanic only available to the players who use Miracle Worker starships. The innovation effects require activation of 3 bridge officer abilities corresponding to the colors on the innovation display window. By successfully matching the colors, it will automatically trigger the available innovation effects for the 10 seconds. Red stands for tactical, blue for science, and yellow for engineering. For example, if you get red, yellow, and blue colors on the innovation display window, then you have to activate 1 engineering, 1 tactical, and 1 science bridge officer ability in order to get the innovation effect triggered. Second example, you see this innovation display overlaid on the screen? Good, there are 2 red and 1 blues. After activating 2 tactical and 1 science ability, innovation effect will be automatically triggered. Note, you do not have to activate bridge officers in order which is displayed on the innovation window, you can just pop them at random. Once effect is deployed, innovation system will go down for a short reboot. Once it refreshes, a new innovation effect will be selected for you at random. And there are 6 possible innovation effects which can be chosen at random. Instinctive rerouting, bonus to all subsystem power levels. Containment layering, temporary hull, based on maximum hull. Heisenberg decoupling, secondary shields based on maximum shields. Plasma conduit purge, a self-targeted area of effect plasma damage over time. This is basically just a big burst of plasma. It's a plasma shockwave. Ingenious solutions, bonus to recharge speeds for bridge officers and captain's abilities. And finally, Barclay maneuver. It will create a photonic copy of your starship, which will then use a ramming speed and collide with a nearby foe, before violently exploding. This is going to wrap this video up, crew. I really hope that you enjoyed. So, if you did, please leave a like, tell this YouTube's algorithm, hey, I like this dude, let's boost him up. Also, if you're new around here, one more time, my name is Captain Geronimo. This is what I do: Star Trek Online, ship reviews, gear reviews, mission walkthroughs, live streams, Star Trek product reviews, and I'm actually starting to play one more time Star Trek Bridge Commander here on live streams. If you would like to be a part of that, you can join, become a crew member, or if you would like to help me financially to keep running this channel, you can join and become a member. You can also buy some merch if you like what I'm wearing. Check it out on the Teespring, and until next time, crew, I love you all because you are the best. You simply are. Geronimo.